In the midst of this world that is full of chaos, and all possibilities of hustle and bustle, we need a lot of meditation, perhaps because we are the only ones who should meditate. But what does meditation mean? It is simply to stop doing, to stop moving, to stop screaming, to walk away, and stay away from this world. Here comes the book Looking at Mindfulness by the author Christoph Andre, that tries to motivate us to do meditation so that it becomes our habit, our culture, and the characteristic that distinguishes us from all beings and creatures. In order to make our own vision of this world clearer, more consistent and in harmony with what is really going on inside our minds. So we have to open our eyes and our minds more. As the person we are looking for, and our lost soul, both lie within us. Looking at Mindfulness, 25 Ways to Live in the Moment Through Arts. By Christoph Andre. In order to reach a state of full consciousness, man needs exciting meditative exercises that can make him see the wonders and secrets of this awesome universe, and the foundations of our soul. Perhaps the first experience that helps us achieve this full consciousness is that we can stop our spontaneous thoughts and actions. We can't treat everything that surrounds us and that is full of beauty as inanimate objects. Rather, the first step to realize its joy and beauty is to enjoy the sun, the snow, and the mountains. And the most important thing in our daily meditative journey is to make the decision that life will give us a chance, connect with us, and can slap us as well. In the full consciousness experiment, it is not enough to live the present moment, but rather meditative practices must be based on paying attention to the feelings of the body. This comes by focusing on this body and paying attention to it and taking care of it, and communicating with it, and by being aware of our body, and not trying to change anything in it, at least in the beginning. The experience of full consciousness in this life also requires facing our negative or painful feelings, and to allow them to exist in our lives. Therefore, instead of getting rid of sadness or trying to find a solution for anxiety, we should accept them first. Bit to remember, achieving full consciousness requires meditative exercises that make us see the wonders and secrets of this universe. In the midst of this mysterious world, modern man asks a crucial question: how do we wake up from this deep slumber? To answer this question, we need to awaken our consciousness every time we see something beautiful, impressive and unexpected, and we shouldn't be like robots that only work and see without having a balanced presence. We always suffer because we live in this world a life through which we live learners, not teachers. That's why we find so many signs everywhere: come this way, from here, and advertisements, now, look, here, enjoy, and to find moments that must amaze or worry us: cinema, theater, museum. This may seem exciting to us, as it can make many life details easier for us. But the most dangerous thing is that our lives are led by guides. And because we have been dominated by this method, our mind has become empty, and our soul is dead or in a state of deep slumber. In addition to this life guide that dominates the details of our lives, when we try to go through a certain meditative experience, or practice internal introspection, away from nonsense things, we find ourselves always failing. And that is because we have lost this ability, or we have never had it. Therefore, when we get anxious and bored, and different forms of suffering are repeated, we often try to get out of this trouble immediately. In fact, we suffer from a general defect in the ability of communication with our inner souls because our society lacks everything that supports this internal introspection. Bit to remember, awakening our full consciousness from the state of being inactive and lazy begins by getting rid of the problems that obstructs this awakening. In this life, man is exposed to all forms of suffering, because the nature of things and the environment in which we live requires that. Among these things that disturb the peace of life and make life difficult is the feeling of pain, whether it is physical or psychological pain, which negatively affects our consciousness and thought. Suffering is in fact the part of the pain that we can deal with. The pain itself may require drug treatment, if possible. But if it is psychological pain, we will keep suffering if we don't handle it well. When a person suffers in his life, suffering dominates his mind, consciousness, and thinking. It may often resemble a black sun, and everything around it revolves in a vicious circle. This analogy comes from the fact of its danger that we rarely pay attention to, as it limits our consciousness, and prevents all other thoughts and feelings from existing in our minds and consciousness. That is why we are required to have a space to meditate in our suffering, because meditation prevents suffering from turning into facts, and prevents our feelings from being hardened and becoming a chronic disease that is difficult to be treated. It helps us not to become victims of our chronic suffering, and to live in pain forever. Bit to remember, meditation prevents suffering from turning into facts that limits our mental consciousness. We are victims of our mental disposition. We often think that we are the masters of our mind, or that our attention and awareness abilities are fixed and perfect, and don't need us to work on them. We all know that unlike all the muscles in our body, our consciousness and mind do not need exercises to be developed, although we accept this idea for our body. What we must realize in this regard is that our psychological world is just like our physical world, also needs special exercises. Spiritual exercises can, on the mental level, develop the abilities of thinking and concentration, and on the emotional level, relieve us of our anxiety, sadness, depression, and all the negative feelings that threaten our psychological health every day. Our openness, awareness, and vigilance also requires paying more attention to meditation exercises about loving others, which are based on thinking about those we love, and feeling this emotional connection with them in the moments of expressing this love. Our expression of love is not only limited to words, but we let this love dictate its way inside us, with its physiological effects on our body. Then all our body will share this state of love truly, and occupy the largest possible space in our consciousness, and our body will be very sensitive to receiving this feeling and its effect. Bit to remember, our psychological world is just like our physical world. It also needs exercises that develop our thinking and concentration abilities.